started this piece here in C minor. Alright, and then I ended up in C major. And that is a very, very unusual movement that you don't see very often yet. What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. I'm sure that when you listen to guys like Hans Zimmer, guys like Bonobo, guys like Niels Fram, elite composers, you're hearing something in the chord progressions. You're hearing like this elite level of composition, and it's sort of the defining thing that makes scores like, you know, The Dark Knight or what Zimmer's other great pieces, the Interstellar soundtrack, and even popular songs that have really elite composition. There's one technique that sort of dominates, and if you know how to do it, it takes your chord progressions immediately to the next level. And that technique is modulation. Now, if you know, an electronic music producer, you probably think modulation and you're thinking, synthesis, you know, assigning an LFO to a cutoff or whatever. But the modulation I'm talking about is the other kind of modulation that's usually associated with, you know, 17th century Mozart, very classical idea, which is shifting from one key into another key completely, sort of moving, transposing, if you will, although that's not a perfect term, but it's a way of understanding what modulation is you moving the key signature from one key to another key. Obviously, a lot of you don't know how to read music, and when I was doing research into modulation, a lot of the things that come up are like, you know, on the sort of stave. I can't even read music, but I do understand modulation mathematically. So today, what I'm going to try and do is show you, without any sort of musical notation, how we can just mathematically understand how modulation is possible. I'll show you a very simple one from a very simple key. Today we're going to move from C minor to its perfect fifth, G minor. Probably the easiest modulation to learn for electronic music, all right? And once you learn this modulation, it opens up the portal, my friends, to infinite other modulations that are possible, and I'll show you lots of them if you're into it. So let me know in the comments if this is your thing or if it's too much, but I'm really excited to explore it. So let's jump in. Now, before I give you the whole sort of theoretical mathematical basis of modulation, let me play you a couple of very basic phrases that contain modulations. Alright, now I won't go on. What's happening in this phrase is that I'm playing the full key signature, which includes the note G sharp in the key of C, and then I'm shifting to the key signature of G, and I'm playing, instead of G sharp or A flat, I'm playing A natural. Alright, so 2. Alright, so you can hear when you play it like that, it actually sounds pretty straightforward. And this is really the key to modulation, is you just got to know both key signatures, and you just kind of have to come in hot believing that you can do it. And as soon as you expose the brain to those two key signatures, it sort of just accepts that the landscape, the musical vocabulary, is a bit wider in this piece of music. And then you can interchange between those two key signatures freely. With that sort of spirit in mind, I'll play you a couple more phrases. Firstly, some low-hanging fruit. Alright, let's do a cheesy flamenco guitar. Oh yeah. And then gotta play not so loud because picks up the noise. Yeah, you can hear that typical flamenco sort of sound. It often does interchange to the perfect fifth, and that is another example of shifting from the full key signature of C minor to the full key signature of G minor. Now I'm doing it basically monophonically there, so I'm not actually playing chords. So it's a lot easier to sort of understand at this level. Let's go and let's sort of expand that a bit. Now every phrase I'm playing today starts in C minor, right? So I'll play something a bit more complex. This could be a movie theme, I was thinking. Alright. And then let's go. Right, now you can hear I've modulated. Now listen to this. Okay, now just for a note, that's C major. So I started this piece here in C minor. Alright, and then I ended up in C major. And that is a very, very unusual movement that you don't see very often. When I started composing, the idea of starting in C minor and ending in C major was preposterous. It was absurd. So that's one of the powers of modulation, is combinations of chords, being able to link chords from musical universes that are at the sort of outset with limited musical knowledge. It's impossible to make these sort of linkages. The thing is, I could actually sort of expand that. If we're talking film score chord progressions, we could play something like... All right, and now we'll modulate again. I love that. All right, so you can imagine in a film score that the chords before, I ended up in A minor there, by the way. So we went from C minor, modulated to the key signature of G minor, and then used another method to modulate to the key signature of A minor. So these are just examples of what modulation can do for your sort of songwriting or your score writing, whatever it is. And then one more simple example, going back to just modulating from C to G. Here's like a mallet sound. Let's play a sort of arpeggio. Okay, there's only one chord that's borrowed from the second musical universe, but you could still hear there's something sort of unusual about that chord progression. Now, you don't have to go and write classical film score to use modulation. You can just have one or two edgy chords, a little moment where the key signature changes and then returns. So there's lots of different ways that you can use this, lots of different contexts that you can use it in. All right? Now, all the phrases I'm playing, guys, are single voices. I mean, I did make one little multiple phrase. It's kind of got strings. And here you hear the modulation. Okay, so it's not going to win a Grammy Award, but it's an interesting sort of idea of how you could, in an electronic music context, start using some modulation. Let's turn that up. Got some drums here. Kind of bonobo-ish kind of a vibe. Again, this is only one kind of modulation. In fact, I have a few songs on Spotify that use modulation. One is called Wooma, and another one's called Close to Me. I'll put those links in the description so you can look at the progressions if you want to see a sort of example of modern electronic dance music that uses a modulation. Now that I've sort of sold the concept to you, of course, if you're interested, we can do the theory. Okay, now obviously this theory is not going to be for everyone, but as I said to you, I show the theory in a way that doesn't use any notation. It's just very simple mathematics, all right? Now, I think I've kind of sold you on the concept of what modulation is, why we would use it, what the motivation is for getting to know it. So now let's maybe get like a little bit deeper into the actual theory involved in modulation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up my trusted whiteboard. Hello, I'm talking to you from the corner of the whiteboard. Guys, so I have my my Wacom pad here. Love this thing, super sexy. I've done a chart of the sort of underlying mathematics of what make this modulation possible. This modulation, ladies and gentlemen, is a perfect fifth modulation. Right, so just to run through the theory. Now again, this theory is not going to be for everyone, but let's run through it. So I'm in C minor, and C minor has 8 notes in the scale, right? C, D, D sharp, or E flat. I like to use sharps. I know people sometimes shout at me, but I like to use sharps. So it's C, D, D sharp, F, G, G sharp, A sharp, and C. If you're a sort of classical person who uses flat, C, D, E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat, and C. Those are the notes. Now we can make a whole bunch of chords and we can do a whole bunch of stuff, but to really understand this context harmonically, we need to think about it in terms of its relative major. Now, it's sort of beyond the scope of this lesson to explain why. If you're interested, please come on my Patreon or drop me a comment and I'll do a video on it. But we always, when we're in a minor, we view its chord progression possibilities, its harmonic context, through the lens of its relative major, all right, which I've calculated here. When I'm in any minor, I can calculate the relative major by moving to the 3rd degree, all right, by moving to the 3rd degree of the minor. So I'm in C minor and I'm going to move to the 3rd degree of it, which is D sharp. And then I'm going to calculate the D sharp scale. Now the D sharp scale is the same notes, same order of notes. So D sharp scale kind of starts here at the 3rd and then it runs. And from here is the same scale. Right now, messing up this beautiful drawing that Fernando did, beautiful art. I'm going to undo that. But these two musical worlds are the same musical world. They share the same key signature. So C minor is D sharp major
And you could say that C minor resolves to D sharp major, and you could say that C minor must be thought of in the context of D sharp major. And if you don't understand that, I'll do a video on relative majors and minors and how it affects harmony. It's sort of its own rabbit hole. Maybe just take my word for it. I must stress that modulation is quite advanced. If you don't know the basics about the harmony, the harmonic laws of C minor, you should probably check out another video that I did, which is up. I'll put a link to that in the description. That is an awesome video that only deals with this topic. C minor, its relative major, and the harmonic world that it sort of inhabits, and the 7 chords that inhabit that harmonic world, and how you can write songs in that key. We're doing something a little bit more intense though. We're starting in this key and we're moving to another key. So I'm going to try to summarize this very complicated music theory in a very simple way, very quickly. We're in C minor, and it has, see, it's 8 notes. Calculate the third one. On the third one, we calculate the notes in the relative major. And then from there, there's a chart over here that contains, it's really like the holy laws of harmony, classical harmony, in a very simple way. Now, a good friend Fernando did these charts and they look beautiful, but unfortunately the minors to have lowercase m's just to make the dictation correct. So small asterisks on the minors, which I'll explain now, but you can see it is listed correctly here. So we've got the laws of the major, is that the first chord is major, the second chord is minor, 3 is minor, 4 is major, 5 is major, 6 is minor, and 7 is diminished. Right? That is probably its own 3-hour lecture that we could just talk about that, about these laws, all right? But I kind of need to rush through, and I just need you to accept this as truth, that if you didn't know that already, or you're struggling, in the key of C minor, in the key of any minor, we go to its 3rd degree, we calculate the relative major, and then from there, we use the laws of the relative major to establish the laws of this harmonic universe. And those laws can be described as follows. The first chord is major, the second is minor, the third is minor, the fourth is major, the fifth is major, the sixth is minor, and the seventh is diminished. All right, and I said that a bit fast. But if you can absorb and memorize those laws, you understand linear harmony. All right, and what that means is I've got 7 chords which are available. Now, in the case of Musical World 1, if you listen, like if I'm just going to go back to my string sound, right? In the case of Musical World 1, if you listen to this chord progression, C minor, D sharp major, G minor, all right? Now, where is that here? All right, it is C minor is the 6th chord, all right? Now, again, that's a whole topic on itself, and that is to say that when we start a song, any song, which is most electronic music, in any minor, that minor cannot truly be the 1 chord. It can't truly be the tonic, the tonal center, the home of that piece of music. It must sort of be the secondary home to the true home, which is the relative major. So the relative major is the 1 chord, right? And we're actually doing that progression where we're going from the 6th chord to the 1 chord, and then from the 1 chord to the 3 chord, right? Now again, I'm dictating this is vital. I'm dictating this according to the relative major, where C is not 1, C is the 6, and D sharp is the 1, and G is the 3, all right? And then I'm moving and I'm playing those chords, not notes, chords. Those chords are C minor, C, D sharp, and G, D sharp major, D sharp, G, and A sharp, and G minor, G, B flat, and D. All right? Fantastic. So now I've got my first phrase, which again, the chord progression is 6, 1, 3. All right. Now, one way to modulate is just to move and repeat that chord progression in the 2nd key. So you can see that I've done the exact same thing. Now, I'm not going to get into the whole thing. It's the exact same thing I just did in C. We've done over here. I've got G minor. I've calculated its scale. I've calculated its 3rd degree. That gives me its relative major. I've worked out the notes of its relative major, 1 through 8, and then I've assigned them to the same chart, which is like a magical dictionary. It gives me chord phrases in this key, and it tells me that there are 7 total chords in this musical universe, and those chords are A sharp major, C minor, D minor, D sharp major, F major, G minor, and A diminished. Following the laws that we established over here, which is that 1 is major, 2 is minor, 3 is minor, 4 is major, 5 is major, 6 is minor, and 7 is diminished, all right? So now we're working, theoretically, we're working in some sort of dichotomy, we're working in some sort of portal between 2 worlds, right? We're like that guy in Avatar that's gone to like another musical universe. We're living in between 2 dimensions. We've got 2 key signatures. What are we going to do? All right? What we're going to do is we're just going to flip between them. Into C minor, fucking own that musical universe, and then to the motherfucking portal into G minor, own that musical universe, shoot some dinosaurs, fuck some bitches, smoke some weed, come the fuck home, like the hero, the musical hero that we are, right? That's the journey. So, we need one thing. We need a portal. You need to know the location of the portal. Right? Where is the portal? Portal is a musical name. It's called the pivot chord, something that announces the modulation. Right now, I don't want to go too deep here, but as I said, there's only one note that's different between these two key signatures, and that note is this key signature has G sharp, A flat. Don't tell me in the comments that it's A flat. I know, right? No, I don't care. I don't care what they call it, what they said in the 17th century, right? This is my channel. Call them sharps. And this note has a natural. So we've got G sharp in this, we've got A natural in this. What I need is some kind of method to let the listener know that I'm flipping. Right? So what I like to do, one possible way is just to repeat the chord progression. No announcement, no pivot chord. So we just go C minor, D sharp major, G minor. Excellent. That's a 6-1-3 in the first key. Now we're going to do 6-1-3 in the second key. 6-1. That's the easiest modulation ever. That's just repeating a chord progression, two different keys. Again, C minor, D sharp major, G minor, which is 6-1-3. Stay here. This becomes the new home. 6-1. Very beautiful. Now C major, which I'll talk to you about. That's a Dorian interchange. We'll do that in the next video. All right. And now again, we could go on E minor. A minor, E minor, D major, A minor. Frodo, go back to the Shire, Frodo. I can't go back to the Shire. Nobody knows who I am anymore. Shire. Sometimes useful to imagine these elaborate film scenarios when you're making these progressions, because look, you can't use all of this stuff in techno. You can use some of it in techno, and I think that's a very exciting prospect to pair this kind of musical idea with something like a modular rack. It's incredibly exciting. We'll be exploring that on the channel. But yeah, that's it, guys. That's without going too deep, that's kind of like a theoretical basis of modulation, where I've got, and let me just clear this, two musical universes, each of which I start in the minor scale. So I'm moving from C minor to G minor, right? And you can see like I'm moving from here to there, right? Oh, let me use the pen, god damn it. I'm moving from C minor to G minor, but I'm actually moving harmonically from the relative major of C minor to the relative major of G minor. And that's why the chord series is sort of thought about in terms of that relative major. Now, can you do this another way? Yes, you can do this another way. You can mode according to the minor, and that's a whole another technique. I guess I'm teaching you this way because I learned this way, and it made me really understand harmony. And once you understand these laws very well, you can do crazy stuff with modulation. There are, as with everything, a million ways to look at this and different lenses. And if you had some music theory ninja in here, you'd probably say, hey, that's not a modulation, it's a borrowed chord. There's lots of different ways and nuances you can look at it. The overwhelming concept here is expanding musical vocabulary. Getting out of 99% of music is here. It's written with the sort of 7 most obvious chords that are associated with either the relative minor or its relative major. And you could hear that listening to electronic music. No, again, not throwing shade at anyone. But, you know, make a bit of an effort, guys. There's a lot of different musical universes and tricks and tools that can, you know, take your shit to the next level. So hopefully we had some fun today. Maybe what I'll do, I will play out with my little mallet composition and play some live stuff over it with the drums. Hope you enjoyed today's video. Please let me know what you thought, what you think of the setup, what you want to see in future videos. Definitely we're going to be doing a lot more music theory and a lot more stuff like this, which is taking these like classical concepts from Mozart and putting them into fucking badass dance music. All right, so have a beautiful day. Stay creative. It's the only answer. Remember that Osho said that creativity is an act of rebellion. The system is trying to squeeze you every day. They're trying to fucking take your time. Trying to Instagram and social media is trying to take your soul from you. At any moment that you can get uninhibited by that clusterfuck, just present and creating is a small victory, and that's all we can hope for is a small victory. So have a beautiful day. Stay creative and let me know, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.